All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. How are we feeling on a Wednesday afternoon?
I'm feeling a lot better.
Loving life.
Yeah?
Yeah, loving life. I had a bit of a tough morning with some friends out on the golf course, but we move on, as they say.
Uh-oh.
Yes. All right. Well, that is, I'm intrigued by that, but it doesn't sound like we want to get too deep into that. And
Well, it was just, I finally, after a couple months, I get my game together, and my two playing Wednesday best friends for a lot of years got one drop of rain, and they said, we're out of here.
Yeah, shoot deployment. That happens a lot in May. It's early in the year. People realize you got a lot of golf in front of you. You don't battle through. Where if it's snowing in October, you're playing. You're playing because you understand that everything's going away.
It rained for like 4 seconds.
Yeah. I don't know. I wasn't playing, so it wasn't on my radar. It wasn't anything I was caring about. Like when you're not playing, and I don't play every day.
Right.
So days I'm not playing, I couldn't care less.
Right.
No.
What the weather's like. Now, if I am, I'm looking 2 weeks in advance, and what are we going to do? And
weather patterns.
how's the wind coming in? And, all that kind of stuff. You got to be prepared. But, yeah, that's disappointing. And not as disappointing as if you're a Stanley Cup playoff fan, though, I'm sure. And you're looking for something here that can drag you in, that makes you actually want to turn on the tube. Like, we got Game 4 tonight, and I don't think Carolina is not programmed to quit.
No.
I fully expect a response. I would not be surprised at all if they won the game tonight.
Last night wasn't about quitting, though. It was over after 3 minutes. In the first period.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was.
So you're right, it wasn't quitting. It was as if they never started. But then after that, it just got so goofy and so silly. Dallas was unraveling, and they were finished. Like Marchessault scores quick. That should not be the game. And then Jamie Benn with one of the dumbest penalties in Stanley Cup playoff history.
Tough one.
That is legitimately one of the dumbest plays in the history of the sport. I'm sorry. It is.
Well,
and it's a no-brainer 5 in a game.
But his explanation, like he didn't talk last night, which a lot of people, I mean, yes, you should talk and you're the captain and that, but the explanation.
You want to hear the explanation today? We waited a while. We were wondering what's up with Jamie Benn. Take us through the process here. What happened? Stone and you engage. Stone falls. You decide you're going to try to decapitate him if you can. And here's how Jamie Benn described what happened last night.
Obviously didn't want to take a 5-minute penalty, but the game happens fast. Emotions are high, and obviously would have liked to not fall on him, and I guess use my stick as a landing point.
That's a silly comment. He's one of my favorite players in the league.
I love him, too.
There's only one explanation. His wires crossed, and he did something incredibly stupid. Cost himself, cost his team. It was a big-time mistake. And sometimes when you're on the edge like that, competitive players are all close to doing something like that. And he did it.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly stupid. And if I said Bunting's check to the head on Chernak was the definition of stupid, there's a new one. That's and
worse.
It was that. Oh, of course
all day
it
that's
was.
worse. Like Bunting's was stupid. It was bad. It was suspendable. But I can reason with Bunting that there was a puck battle that was about to take place in the corner, and he was trying to get out in front of it by making contact with Chernak.
Right.
Like, that was his explanation. And he missed it, he got him square in the head, and he injured Chernak. Difference here is Stone got up and kept playing, and he's fine.
Right.
Where Chernak, as far as we know, is still in a bad place.
Still bad place,
That's how bad that was. But I could reason with Bunting saying, I was trying to get his shoulder, trying to push off and beat him into a puck battle. Jamie Benn saw him sitting on the ice and said, I'm going to bury this guy.
Hey, listen,
I'm going to bury this guy in the head. And if he doesn't get suspended, the NHL might as well pack up shop and just say, we don't know what the hell we're doing.
I would be shocked if we didn't hear on this show today by 6 o'clock that he's gotten a game or two. And there's a lot of heroes out there. Wow, he's got a history of cross-checking. That guy plays for keeps. Now, this one is a mistake. Absolutely. This is a mistake. But Jamie Benn is a hell of a player, and he plays hard.
No one's
and he
disputing
fights.
that, though. I
Like,
love Jamie Benn, too, but it doesn't
It's
matter
a dumb
who it
mistake.
is.
I'm just saying it's a dumb mistake. But
Of
like,
course.
we're getting emails going, well, he's got a history of cross-checking. What the hell does that got to matter? What does that matter?
It makes no difference to me.
Exactly. That's a
It's a
suspendable
suspension,
play.
period.
But that guy plays tough, and he crossed the line. That's what it is.
Absolutely.
And he
the
didn't
thing
back
is,
it up.
and Ray's talked about it before, Noodles, sooner or later, and by the way, the worst cross-check I've seen since I've been working at TSN, and I don't even know if he got suspended, was Bufflin almost decapitated JT Miller in Winnipeg one night.
That was 4 games he got, didn't that? In the
Yeah.
regular season. I
And
think.
this one wasn't as bad. But we've talked about it with Ray before, and we always say in the league, and the players talk about it, when are they actually going to do something and get someone's attention about non-hockey plays like that?
Yeah.
Like Mark Stone's lying on the ice, and Hayes, you just said it, and I don't know if there's five guys in the league I like more than Jamie Benn.
Mm-hmm.
But when are they going to make a stand against plays that aren't hockey plays and that are just random acts of kind of violence like that? Like,
Well,
you can't fall on a guy and say it's an excuse.
Well, and follow
And-
through with your stick on his head. Like
Yeah.
you used him. What did he say? A landing spot? or
Yeah, it
something?
was an unfortunate set of circumstances.
Listen,
it's no one's
a
fault.
suspendable play every
know what
day of the week.
It kind of
every day of the week.
different setup because of the way Stone was on the ice, but it's a lot like Kadri on DeBrusque, where remember Kadri just went at DeBrusque and buried him and
Now, that was
cross-checked him
from
in the head.
behind, wasn't it? That
Didn't he
was
do
A,
it
I don't think it
twice?
matters,
Right.
but B, I don't recall. I thought Brusque was kind of on the side, and
yeah. That was a
Kadri went up to
3-gamer.
him.
Didn't he get 3 games?
I thought he got the rest of the series, and it was in game 2.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, anything short of like a 5-game suspension, or you're done for the rest of the series. The series is over in game 4 anyway.
Yeah.
Like, Dallas is done based on the way that they acted last night.
They unraveled
The
last night.
crowd was an embarrassment last night.
Yeah.
Although they're not alone. Crowds do that all the time. Like, people in Toronto were throwing stuff on the ice, game 5, when the Riley goal wasn't counted. So fans do stupid
happens.
things all the time, but I don't know.
I
Like,
think
anything
it's
short of you're done through
it's
7.
It's
is
definitely
crazy.
100% a suspension. And I just don't like how it all went down. Like, I guess, I don't know if you're going to speak afterwards. I know big deal was made about that. He is the captain of the team. The team unraveled. Max Domi's running around out there. Like, it just, that game was done in 7 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and you know who
7 minutes.
you know who is taking cover and no one's talking about is Jake Ottinger, who was terrible again last night.
Got pulled again.
He got pulled. He had to get pulled. He gives up 3 goals on 5 shots, and like Benn is going to wear it because of the 5 minutes, and they score on it,
Right.
and the game's effectively over at that point. But it didn't have to be. Like when he gets kicked out, Dallas still was desperate, still down 0-2, still had the ability for their goaltender to get them through the storm of the 5-minute kill.
God, you need a save.
Kill it off, exactly, and move on. You're down 1-0, and let's see what happens. And by the time it's 3-0 and that penalty expires, it's over. Game's over.
Yeah.
It's done. And
agree.
like Aiden Hill, I credit him. He got challenged a little bit, but not much. I mean, what did they end up with? 32 shots.
He's
They
just had to be
kind of
good,
threw
though.
stuff at him.
He's just had to be good. He
Yeah,
hasn't-
exactly.
Against Edmonton.
Under the radar, just be good enough.
Game 6 against Edmonton, I thought he was really good. Made 40 saves. Outside of that, he just had to be good. And there's nothing wrong with that. Vegas has done a really good job getting underneath the skin, playing with structure, scoring big goals. This Marchessault, he's come to play.
He's a player, man.
And
He's been a
Noodles,
player
I
since
can't
he
figure
got
the
there.
goaltending out. I cannot figure the goaltending out.
It's-
You've got a 2-time Vezina guy in Florida who might single-handedly win his team the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And I don't mean this disrespectfully, but the guy in net for Vegas, I never heard of the guy. So for any team that wants to shore up their goaltending for Hayes, have you ever heard of him?
Yeah, I've
Yes,
heard of
we've
him.
heard of
Yeah,
him.
we just
Where?
read-
He,
well,
he started
where
in
did he
Ari-
play
he
before
started in
Vegas? Where did he
Arizona.
play?
He went to Arizona to San Jose.
obviously,
to
you would
Vegas.
know that. I remember him from San Jose. Obviously, I couldn't tell you. He might.
He played against the Leafs this year.
That's
I
right. He had a
believe.
great game against the
Yes,
Leafs.
when he was with San Jose.
He had a
I
great
remember
game,
that.
did he?
Great game.
Yes,
Great game.
I think they.
He could be my
Anyway,
neighbor, and I wouldn't pick him off. You know,
No,
I
the
couldn't-
bottom line is for any team, and maybe Toronto's going to be one of them, to try and figure out your goaltending, you're either going to say, we got to go out and get a guy like Bobrovsky, Or we got to get some tall dude that nobody's heard of, and maybe he can go in there in the middle of a series and get the job done.
Well,
it's goofy, man.
It's the same thing as last year where you had Vasilevsky on one side, and on the other, you had, who was it in Colorado that now is in Washington? Darcy Kemper, who's a good goalie.
Yeah,
Kemper's an established, good goalie and a starter. But Vasilevsky was
elite.
The elite, the king. Bobrovsky's doing, what he was doing in those Vezina years, and he's likely going up against Adin Hill, who was, their third-string goalie? Like, if Robin Leonard's healthy, Leonard's playing this year.
Well, Logan Thompson.
And then Logan Thompson had a great year.
Then there's Larry Brossoit, who played, and then Adin Hill.
He'd be their fourth.
Well, Jonathan Quick
when Quick was acquired, you could argue Quick was supposed to be ahead of. You could argue there were times this year where Adin Hill was supposed to be their fifth goaltender. And this guy's going to be playing in a cup final.
Honest to God, if everybody was healthy, he might be based on their depth chart.
Right. If Leonard's here, Quick's here, Thompson's here, Brossoit, they're all healthy and available within the Golden Knights. He's in the East Coast Hockey League.
He might, Hill would be, Hill and Larry Brossoit are kind of in that same.
Right.
And Jonathan Quick is at the end of his career.
Sure.
So there's a difference. And Thompson was a rookie last year who came up and then had a really good start and then got injured.
But it is confusing, right? It is confusing. And that's everything we talked about yesterday still stands and is still, I think, applicable. Look at Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky he's won 2 Vezinas. If he wins a Conn Smythe and a cup here, he might be going to the Hall of Fame someday. He probably should be going there anyway because he's won 2 Vezinas. $10 million a year. The guy's a beast. He's a machine when he plays well. Right. And then on the other side of it is, let's just bring a bunch of guys in here that have talent, clearly.
Yeah, like
NHL ability. Of course they are. We're not talking, scrubs here. Contest winners are trying to get to a cup final.
It's not David Ayers in the net.
It's not David Ayers.
Who's the guy who played was with the Leafs that they brought in? What was that kid's name? I feel bad because then they give him a minute or two at the end of a game.
Yeah, the University of Toronto kid against the Habs, and that was a big controversy.
How different are your stop and chats? No Canadian teams, guys I golf with, they're like, did you see that Benn play last night? And one guy goes, yeah, it was crazy. And then that's it. There's just...
Well, dude, it's not even close to the border.
Insane.
It's not even... It's you can't get to a conference final. You got to drive 24 hours to get to a conference final game. How far is it to drive to Carolina? You've done it a bunch of times.
12
hours straight. That's the closest ticket.
He always stops at that greasy hotel or whatever with the live band.
Somewhere in West Virginia or in Pittsburgh or whatever. So 12 hours with a pit stop at a grubby spot in Pitt.
Yeah.
That's the closest ticket to the Canadian border. There is no connection to any of these teams up here.
There isn't. You're right.
And the series have been compelling at individual moments, like last night, the Benn cross-check, what's going on with the fans.
Dude,
but it's 3-0, 3-0. It's terrible.
Right. I was watching the game. I'm like, give me a good game. Get me to some kind of, I don't want to be up all night, but get me to an overtime, exciting overtime. In 3 minutes, you guys said 7 minutes. I thought it was 3. I thought after 17 minutes it was 3 Cobb.
Yeah,
it was.
It was.
Yeah, then I'm like, well, what the hell? I'm back to my murder mysteries.
Well, it was ugly because you have to pull the goaltender. And I don't have the stats in front of me, but I swear I think there's been 20 or 21 pulls this playoff.
That's a wild stat.
Which is, I have to double check because I believe Stuart Skinner was the 19th or 20th in that last game 6 against Vegas. Mm-hmm. And Skinner got pulled 3 times. I think that was Ottinger's 4th.
Right, he's been pulled a fair amount.
Right, so you start to take a look at some of these. Some of these are kids. Like Ottinger's a kid, Skinner's a kid, but this is where it's for all the chips. There's no making excuses. You either got to play well or you've got to find somebody else to stop pucks. You're right. The stories aren't that compelling because it's 3 Cobb, 3 Cobb. If it was 2-1 and Ben did that or 2, and the same thing with Florida. You could argue that Carolina should be up 3 Cobb.
Of course, it's been close enough to do that, but
it's still 3-0.
I think to paint a picture in terms of what is at stake here, because it's 3-0 in both series, respectively. You look at it, Ben is going to be suspended. I think we'd all be shocked if he doesn't.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter because everyone understands they're done. Barkov's playing tonight. That's big because Florida's in the lead. Right. But they're up 3-0. Like, whether he plays or not, they're probably still going to win this series. In fact, I think we all believe it's a lock they're going to win the series. So you have major players. Jamie Benn, big news. Sasha Barkov, big news. And it doesn't even show up on the Richter scale because both series are effectively washed out.
Well, it is. You're right. They're washed out.
Hopefully that isn't the case for the Stanley Cup final. And will they adjust the scheduling? Like, if it ends tonight and then Vegas wins in 4, do they start up next Monday?
Better.
Final? Why not?
Why would you want to let it marinate? Get it over with.
Yeah, it should, but a lot of it is based on TV and building availability. And
I would think they would probably try and adjust a couple dates.
You got to get something cooking here. Both series end in 4. You got to get going quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to get going quick. You got to get something sparked.
Keep it going. I mean, there could be worse cities, Vegas, Florida, for finals. Like, I guaranteed the people who are making those trips are pretty excited.
I don't blame them. We're not doing it, though, so I don't care.
I know. I would love to do an over.
Oh, it'd be
if we could do one show in each city, if we did one in Florida.
We've done shows in Florida and Vegas.
Go back to Jesters. Or we'll go to the Elbow Room, and then we'll go to Vegas. You can walk around in a tracksuit and buy some bleachers.
It's a great idea.
Absolutely.
We cover the Stanley Cup Finals for TSN. We do our show on location, and then we do SportsCenter hits after the games. We talk about the game. We're willing and prepared to go on site and work and work hard.
Big content creation.
Yes. We set up shop at local places. We do our show. We talk to fans. We generate buzz. And then we do SportsCenter after the game.
And then next year it's Columbus against what terrible city in the West.
Then we send somebody else.
Yeah, and then it's you guys. Yeah, exactly. We need you to hit the road again. St. Louis. I know you love St. Louis, but St. Louis, Columbus Cup final. It's like, I don't know if we can make that one.
I'll take anything.
You could do something remote on that.
You're right. It's disappointing as far as the storylines because usually it's a little thicker in storyline.
It's supposed to get better and better and more difficult and more difficult. It goes against the reputation of the Stanley Cup playoffs that it's the toughest trophy to win. Well, this year, for these teams, it hasn't been necessarily.
Right.
Like, at least not this round. Like, it doesn't mean Carolina and Dallas have not put up a fight. Like, first 2 games went to overtime in both series.
Yeah.
Those are great games, very compelling games. But the outcomes happen to fall a certain way where once you got through 3, you realized there's no life left.
Well, is there any?
And that's very disappointing.
I know it's only happened, 4 times in the history. Is there 0% chance that
I think
one
0 in Dallas because of what happened last night and the nature of the way that's playing.
Well, Benn's gone for probably.
Yeah, and I don't trust Ottinger. Like, Carolina, it feels like they're built in a way, and I've been saying this for weeks. Like, if the levee breaks on Bob, it can get ugly quick.
Right.
But it just doesn't seem likely that's going to happen with him.
No.
Like, he's playing
If it was
going to
happen, it was going to happen after that quadruple overtime game, and that guy hasn't flinched.
Yeah,
he ain't budging in that series.
And I think you got to give him the benefit of the doubt. If he has a bad game, which is natural, he's probably going to bounce right back because he's a veteran. He's done it before, and he's feeling good. Right.
Fair enough.
Like you were talking about, Bill Ranford. And,
in the 90s.
In the 90s, and you were.
He was waiting.
He was waiting for a night off, and it just never happened.
Just kept going, and he had those. I think Peter Klima scored that goal in Boston where the lights went out, came back on. It was like a lengthy overtime, but like you're right. This Carolina series, like that went to quadruple? 4.
Quadruple, and it was
overtime.
like 13 seconds away from a fifth overtime.
That's a coin flip. Yes. Carolina wins that. It's looking a little different, and it's unfortunate because it has been. When they went into overtime, there was good theater. There was good, it was good hockey. But 3-0, it's over.
It's likely over.
There is a sliver. Do you think
sliver of hope?
Do you think in Carolina, the OverDrive Carolina is having Justin Williams on? And
you have to
say
you
were in that dressing room at 3-0 in L.A.
Pronger will be on the Philly team. Mike Richards come on. Every producer's doing the same thing. They're like, who can we get that was on one of those Philly or L.A. teams that came back from down 0-3?
Yeah. It's got to be something like
it's mandatory. Yeah, you got to have it for sure. All right, the Jays are back in action tonight. Kikuchi on the mound. They're going up against McClanahan, who his stats are exactly what you would expect they are. a low 2 ERA, 7-0. But Jim Duquette coming up, former MLB GM, MLB Network Radio host, 20-1.
I've got a question
last night.
Like I've said,
They got position players out there throwing meatballs down the middle of the plate.
I'm watching this game last night, and it's 10-1, and I'm back and forth flicking around, and I come back and it's 11-1, and Vladdy's up, and Al's brother is throwing the ball.
Yeah, Luke Raley comes in, and he's asked to get 6 outs, which is extreme.
Yeah.
Like, that's extreme. It's one thing for a position player to come out maybe for the 9th or try to get an out or two late in the game.
Yeah, but can you not throw a little something different than what he was doing?
Was
like,
51.
give me something. You're a big league player. Like, come on.
Well, what was amazing, and this is, it's the modern game, it's technology, and it's very, very exclusively a baseball thing where they find stats. Like, this has never happened before in this situation. And that home run that Vladdy hit last night, he was so pissed that he struck him out.
Well, that's the thing.
Because he was embarrassed he got struck out. And he should be. Like, he should be that he got embarrassed. He hit that ball so violently, that grand slam he hit. And the production team had the audacity to put up the exit velocity on a ball thrown under 70 miles an hour. As if there's all this data available.
Yeah.
Like, of course that's the hardest hit ever.
Yeah.
Off a pitch that goes 68 miles an hour. Who the hell's throwing 68 in the bigs? But that's what we're doing now. Like, exit velocity in the 7th inning off the left-hander when there's 2 outs, and he throws between 90 and 91. Okay. It's almost like you're drowning in all this information.
It was insane.
That's available.
He knocked that to the moon.
He crushed that ball, and he turned on it. But the idea that there's exit velocity and Luke Raley's got to chew on that, pretty incredible last night. But Jim Duquette will join us. Ask him. Like, he's a lifetime baseball guy.
It's just a bit weird. Like, I get it.
It's the nature of not having a score clock, right? Like, you got to get to 27 outs, and that's that.
But Tampa conceded the game, and it's like, okay, we get it. But it's just it's downright embarrassing. Yes,
it is. It's
really
embarrassing.
Is.
Like, and that's a team. Like, they're getting booed. They're the first place team in Major League Baseball.
By a mile. Like,
and the 15 fans in attendance are booing. Like, there's no one there anyway. And then
Dude,
by the
I
time
think a
it's
team
20-1.
after seven, you should be able to say, that's it. No thanks. See you tomorrow.
Well, the mercy rule discussion has come up forever. I don't think it's ever going to happen because of the TV commitments. Yeah. Because, like, if it happens quickly and TV's like, well, we're not leaving. We've put aside 3 hours for this program.
That is true.
But wouldn't players want those at-bats? Like, I said this to you, like, did Judge hit any home runs last year off of a guy that was a position player?
I don't recall.
Any good season happens like that. Like, if you're going to score 50 goals in the NHL, you got to get a couple garbage ones, empty net ones. When games are out of hand, you sneak one in. So to that point, there's always stats available for guys too that they would probably.
Sure.
I was happy for Vladdy because he needed that.
Vladdy needs to start hitting for power.
He needs that.
He needed that to get off the schneid. That counts as 4 RBI. That's a home run.
I was chuckling to myself. I'm like,
put that in the negotiating room.
His stats just got helped there by.
And there's no context to it.
Exactly.
I think that's what's more important is that there's no context to it. It's not how, it's how many. That's what it always is.
All I could think of this morning when I thought of it again was Pierre Engvall when he scored on David Ayers and was the happiest guy in the building.
Yes.
He almost rode his stick to center ice.
He almost did because he hadn't scored in like 20 games. I remember that. That made it 4-3 end of the second. I remember thinking they're going to blow these guys out 10-4 or whatever it was.
But like I just remember Engvall just had a flick shot towards the net. It went in the net.
Counts.
And he was so happy.
Absolutely. Vladdy, that counts. Go to his baseball profile online. That counts as a home run. He hit a grand slam last night. Exit velocity. But what I do think, what bothers what bothered me, I'm watching it last night, like Kevin Cash, he quit on the game. Like, he's like, go out there and just end this for. But then why not even tell your batters to go up in the 8th and 9th and just take strikes? Like, just end it. Like, don't even swing. Like, if you're conceding and it's over, just go up there and say, throw 3 strikes so we can leave.
Right.
Which would be even more embarrassing. I understand it would look horrible to do that.
Yeah, but as
if,
Noodles just mentioned, the guys are going up there saying, I got an opportunity to hit a home run here. I'm not going to just pack it in.
Exactly. But the game's over. The managers quit. It's 20-1.
Yeah.
Like, they're up there in the bottom of the ninth. What are you going to have, a 19-run rally? Like, everyone knows it's over. So why are you wasting your time?
There's one hero in the dugout that you know.
But that's
like,
it. That guy's going up. He's like, hey, I'm trying to get a hit, man. I'm up for a contract this year. Like,
Yeah, and it's an individual sport, even though it's a team sport.
always.
That's
It's
that.
pitcher versus hitter, and they're all
Yeah.
wearing the same uniform. Every single AB.
Yeah.
So Jim Duquette coming up. We got Craig Button will join us just after 5 o'clock. Apparently, Kyle Dubas met a legend last night down in Pittsburgh. We'll tell you about that and that report. Very interesting what's going on down there in Pittsburgh. Very, very interesting. OverDrive.
Not exactly a secret meeting.
It doesn't seem to be a secret. Who leaked that? I'd love to know, actually. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, OverDrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Jim Duquette coming up here in a moment. Jays Rays tonight. Game 3 of their series. After a lopsided victory for the Jays last night. And Barrios, don't bury the lead. Jose pitched well.
Yeah, he did.
Barrios pitched really well. Says something about how poor he was last year. Like, downright terrible basically all season, that he's been pretty good. He's been pretty good, pretty consistent.
Reliable.
And yet it feels like last year's reputation is still kind of hanging over him. And, maybe if he keeps getting better and being consistent, go out there, give him 5, 6, the occasional 7-inning, quality start and keep your numbers at a reasonable rate, it's probably not going to be what they actually, paid for. But it doesn't mean it has to be a disaster. Like, he's got to make an impact.
Out of my mouth. Like, with that contract and you're begging for 5, 6, maybe 7, it's like,
yeah,
that's insane.
That's not
insane.
Ideal at all. Like, it's certainly not what they signed up for. They signed up for an ace. They were looking for a top of the rotation guy, a top 2 or 3 guy in your rotation. But last year was such a disaster for him that he's kind of starting from scratch, and it's about keeping it in the park. He got hit so hard last year. Like, the amount of home runs he gave up was
terrible.
Was crazy.
Yeah.
But he pitched well again last night against a very good team.
Yep.
Here's Jim Duquette, former MLB GM, MLB Network Radio host. Jim, I'm sure you've been in this position before as a longtime executive. You pay a guy, and you're expecting big production, and it doesn't go that way for the first little bit. That's the case with Barrios up here in Toronto. But he's been pretty consistent, pretty good this year. Would you still approach him as, okay, he's a back end of the rotation guy? Or when do you start changing your mind on maybe what Barrios can bring the rest of the season?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I was listening to you guys talking. I didn't even need to hear the name. I knew exactly who you were talking about. With Barrios. He's frustrating. Those guys, sometimes, you get those guys and you pay them ahead of time. We've seen this around the game. And I used to try to do it too when I was in the front office, except the numbers add more zeros now, but at the end of them, you're trying to get a young talent like he was in Minnesota, and you could project him to be, like you were saying, 1 or 2 type starter, or maybe a 2 type starter. So you think you're going to sign him to something that's going to be, below market deal, and it ends up looking like a bad deal for you. And I think with him is what you're hoping is that he's going to pitch consistently at this point because of the disaster it was last year. And if you get that out of him, then, I think that's progress. I still think there's more in there. It may not come out of him this year, even the true potential, but that's not unusual for some guys. And I was trying to think, Gossman's a perfect example of that. Mm-hmm. Gossman, if you look at Gossman, 5 years ago, maybe when he was with Baltimore, you're like, oh man, this guy is never going to figure it out. They trade him to Atlanta, he was a bust. And now he's one of the top pitchers in the sport. So it happens, where guys, maybe don't quite reach their potential right away, and then they get there. So I'm still hopeful for him. But for this year, I got to look at him as a number 4 type starter. You're getting more out of Kikuchi. You better get more out of Manoah, or else you're going to have real troubles in the division.
Jim, when you hand out the money for the contract like that, and the general manager is usually doing the wheeling and dealing and talking the guy up, and it goes south, Like, how pissed are you? And is there like a personal conversation between the GM and the players saying, hey, man, like this needs to turn around because you promised me the world, we gave you the world, and the results aren't there?
But first off, as a front office guy, it's your like worst nightmare, right? So you have to go and sell. And first off, you're getting the evaluations from your top evaluators, and then you have to go sell ownership on it. And
All right, we'll throw Jim on hold there. Man, that was going to be a good answer, too.
Yeah, he was just wavering.
Yeah, you could feel he's been burned by players before. You could just.
Well, dude, how pissed would you know those meetings where it's like flying out to LA to meet Tavares and the presentations and talking it up and then selling ownership on how you want to give them the world, and then the guy's a gas can. You literally would lose sleep over that.
It is the worst possible outcome
but on paper,
in management in pro sports.
It's not the manager's fault at that point. On paper, that's the right move. He's trying to upgrade his team. Yes, he's
no kidding, Jamie. We talked about David Clarkson a lot. We talked about David Clarkson a lot when he came to Toronto. It obviously didn't work out.
Wendell Clarkson. Wasn't that the front cover of the
But he was the most coveted free agent of the whole lot. How could you blame them for going after him? It didn't work out.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, what, Hayes? You knew it wasn't?
No.
You're a moron.
There's differences. He was 30. He had one 30-goal season.
All right. Well,
like, he was a third-line player. They paid like a – but anyway, we don't need to dig that up. That's way in the past. Exactly. We got Jim Duquette back on the line. Jim, you're just, pouring your soul out about how much it sucks when you pay a player a lot of money and he struggles, right? And just being around ownership and stuff and – terrible.
Well, it ends up, there's a certain amount of credibility that you bring as an expert in the field. You're selling your owner on it, and then it goes awry. And it's not like this is a short deal or a cheap deal. And so, there's a bit of the, you still have to be able to sell owners on, hey, he'll figure it out. But you lose a little credibility in their eyes, and sleepless nights, and you're trying to figure it out. How did you go wrong with the evaluation, or how the heck do you fix it? And it's really frustrating if you're in that spot because you feel like you're chasing your tail a little bit, And I think that part of it, you have to put it aside because the season, you move on and you're trying to win as many games as you are, but that I used to kind of joke about it, but it's real. It's like, man, sometimes you make a mistake, and it's better to fess up and own it, and then see if you can trade the player and move on from it, so you're not reminded of it every single time he's on the mound. The problem is with that deal, you're not going to be able to move him.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to fix him.
Yeah, there's so much money still there. I mean, it's not even unless you're going to eat like 90% of the deal, you're not even going to go down that road. With Jim Duquette. So last night it was fun if you're a Blue Jay fan. It's fun if you get a chance to get up there and hit. The Jays put 20 on the board down at the Trop, but Luke Raley's out there pitching. Like Cash went to a position player to get him 6 outs. Like this is such an evergreen topic in baseball. But where do you stand on position players getting the ball, and the mercy rule conversation? How can baseball? Is there anything that can be done to avoid 20-1 where it's an embarrassment by the end of the game?
Well, yeah, I think you start with I'm not a big fan of throwing position players. A big part of our roster management was we want to make sure we have enough pitching. And by the way, we could pitch with 12 guys on the roster or 13 guys on the roster. A big part of our roster management was making sure we weren't in a situation like that, unless it was extra innings. It was embarrassing to have the way it ended, the way it did. So, like I used to have talks with the managers about it. Even when I was the assistant GM, we wanted to avoid that at all costs because it usually didn't end well. You're putting your position players at risk too, because they're doing something they're not accustomed to doing. So I would not allow it. So that would be the first thing. I'm not in favor of the old mercy rule or the run rule, whatever it is. I think you just got to suck it up and you got to pitch. You got to pitch your guys. And by the way, if you're short on pitching going into the game, then you got to send a player out just like we used to do and bring up somebody who can give you some length and work it out that way. But definitely not 6 outs. If you're going to do it, it's three outs maximum for me.
Is there one that stands out for you? I mean, all of us in our careers had an awful game or, several games maybe that stand out for you. Was there one that you were involved in that was north of 20 or something ugly like that?
Well, so here's one for you. So I was with the Orioles. We had just taken the interim label tag off of our manager. The manager was Dave Turnbull at the time. We had a doubleheader against Texas. We're in the whole thing. Because we were so bad. We allowed 30 runs in the first game, and we had to sit through a second game. And we didn't. We did. As far as I can remember, I don't think we used a position player. We probably should have, but we didn't. But it was so bad. But it was one of those the most memorable games that you'll ever see. And the reason why, obviously, it's in the Hall of Fame, like the lineup cards and the box score, and because no one else has topped it. In fact, when teams get to like 26 or 27 runs, I'm cheering for them to get over 30 so that I don't have to see my team in the Hall of Fame for that dubious distinction.
So what happened in the second game of the doubleheader? Did you guys get smoked, or did you make that a ball game?
We got beat that one, too. I think we gave up – I'm not positive, but I think we gave up 11 more in the second game.
Wow.
I mean, it was having to sit through that day, and I felt terrible for Dave Turnbull because there's this great, momentous occasion, right? He was a lifelong minor league coach and manager. He gets his first opportunity as a official major league manager in the first day. He gets a 30, the worst ever. He and I laugh about it now, but it wasn't fun at the time.
No. I guess, glass half full, he's in the Hall of Fame on his first day. There is a positive in that. Right. He's in Cooperstown immediately. But, yeah, Grappler looking that up. You guys lost 30-3. Look up what the second game was. Sorry to really rain on the parade, Jim. Please. But find out what the score was of that second game.
Oh.
We got to know that.
We had a guy retire. We had a pitcher named Paul Shuey. He was a first-round pick that we ended up getting. Is at the end of his career. After that game, he took the brunt of the runs. He retired after that game. There was roadkill everywhere after that game.
Wow.
Jim, there's rumblings that Ryu is down in Tampa and that he might be kind of trying to get back in the mix here. Is there any reason to expect that he could possibly return to any kind of form?
That's a tough one. I think he's due back in like July-ish?
Yeah, August or something.
Somewhere in that
post All-Star game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a reach, but there are guys that they have after surgery like this. It's kind of a reset button, and they get back to a semblance of what they are. But it's hard to he's been one of those guys that's never been a really hard thrower, and these guys these days. I don't know if you saw the Dodgers rookie starter last night. His first 19 pitches, like 7 of them were over 100 miles an hour. You have to throw hard. Very rarely do guys like Ryu get out. Now, some of them do. Bassett to me is amazing what he does. But I would keep the expectations low on Ryu on this one.
Yeah, that probably is going to be the plan, I would think. If you're Ross Atkins and company, you're going to see if he can give you anything at some point. But he's not a bullpen arm. Because you mentioned he's not a guy that can throw heat. No. He's not coming in to give you three outs in the 7th or 8th inning, high leverage. It's not going to happen. So they're probably just going to, let him play it out. Maybe they send him to the minors. He gets some rehab in, and he gets a new contract. He goes somewhere else next year as a reclamation project. I guess that's possible. We looked it up, Jim. 9-7. You lost the doubleheader. 9-7. So that's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad.
After giving up 9 runs, you felt better. Yeah, well, sure.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That one did make the Hall of Fame. That box score didn't make the Hall of Fame.
Right. Yeah, 39 runs allowed in about 8 hours. That's clearly a record. It's got to be.
2 meals too. Yeah, it's 2 meals.
Yeah, that's tough. Well, we'll leave it there, Jim, on a high note. Thank you for doing this. We appreciate it, and we'll do it again down the road.
Anytime, guys.
Okay.
I will talk to you soon.
There's Jim Duquette, who's he's got some
scars.
Got some scars,
Wow,
man. He's got
I
some
didn't
dark
mean to
memories.
open a can of worms there, but everyone
I'm glad you
remembers.
did, though. That's amazing. 30-3. Imagine you're sitting up there in the press box watching your team get destroyed.
No, but what about the manager, though? He just gets the call and gets crushed.
Yeah, what do you have, Graf?
Welcome to the big leagues.
Best part of that game, the Orioles were up 3-0 in the 3rd inning.
You're kidding me.
So the Rangers scored 30 consecutive unanswered runs between the 4th and the 9th inning.
Oh, my God. So the new
insane.
Skip through 3 is dancing in the dugout.
He's texting his buddies. I'm in the big leagues for winning.
How about the guy who
feeling good.
retired?
Yeah.
Like, you imagine having such a bad game. You're like, I'm done.
I'm out of here.
I
Yeah.
quit.
That's honestly. Have you seen Half Baked when the guy he's like, "F you, you're cool, screw you, I'm out." Like he probably literally did that on the way out.
Just
Threw a
said, "I'm
baseball
out."
right off some guy's head. Said, "I'm
It is.
leaving."
Like there's got to be.
Scarface, I think was that guy's name.
There's got to be stories out there. That can't be the only one where a guy was like Lenny Dykstra's told us where he retired after.
No, it was John Kruk.
Sorry, John Kruk,
Kruk.
not Lenny Dykstra.
Yeah.
John Kruk said, I'm out after my last at bat.
He hit a double or whatever, and he just kept running. He's like, "I'm leaving."
I swear to God, I think Ryan Whitney quit after the first period or something. I heard that story.
Really? In the NHL?
In the NHL. I swear to God,
I didn't
heard
know
he
that
quit
story.
like after the second period or the first period. I swear somebody told me that. But I've never heard these stories. It would be amazing to find out if somebody quit like mid-game. That's it. I'm done.
And at what point during that outing did he just say, "I'm never doing this again"?
Yeah, never.
Like, I refuse to. You guys, this is so disgusting around here.
There's
I can't be here. I don't want to be affiliated with you.
There's
And I
fans
hate
that
everyone.
want players to retire during a game, but
That's true.
But it's the other way where a player's like, "I'm never doing this again. I am done."
Yeah,
That's crazy.
that'd be wild. The retirement activation mid-game. Anyway, thanks to Jim Duquette. Jays back in action tonight. Yusei Kikuchi on the mound up against Shane McClanahan, he's a beast. He's
Yep.
an absolute beast. And chances are you're going to have to win with some pitching and some defense tonight. I don't know how much run production the Jays are going to have left over, but who knows? Maybe the bats came alive last night. Craig Button will join us in about 20 minutes. Reports coming out of Pittsburgh linking Kyle Dubas to the Penguins, including a little meet and greet, a little stop and chat last night with someone in particular. We'll tell you about that. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, so we just had Jim Duquette on, and I mean, we didn't realize that this guy had a dark history with guys retiring mid-game. You know, he was the GM of the
You
team
guys
that-
opened up a can of worms?
Man, did we open up a can of worms. Like, he's in the Hall of Fame as the GM of the team that got beat down worse than anyone in Major League history. And he mentioned there was a pitcher on that team that retired right afterwards. He got smoked. He gave up so many runs. He was so rattled. He said, "I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore." And people are pointing out Vontae Davis. Remember, he retired at halftime for the Bills.
Packed it in.
I remember that vividly now. They were getting smoked. They weren't that good. This was before Josh Allen, or maybe Allen's like rookie year. And he just said, "I'm out of here. I'm not doing this anymore."
Shower and just walk out.
Yep. At the half, he said, "I'm gone." And then Antonio Brown, remember, he got kicked off, took his shirt off, and was like, "See you later. I'm out." We never saw him again.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly certain we're never going to see him again.
No.
No,
in the
he
NFL.
always pops up like saying, "I'm planning everything." Like, if anyone signed that guy, and you know what? It wouldn't shock me if somebody did. Would be the most insane thing of all time.
Can he still play, though? That's the thing.
I don't.
He's a
It's
giant
tough to say.
distraction,
It's
right?
been years since he was like in his prime. Like, he was a rock star of a wide receiver when he started off in Pitt. Man, he was a rock star.
Think about what those two guys did in Pitt. The running back, Bell,
Le'Veon Bell. Yep.
and Antonio Brown were the cream of the crop as far as where they were ranked in their positions. Like, just highly regarded. and they both just had to jam it all up, and it was a mess when they both left for both of them.
That's right. Neither of them ever got anywhere close to what they were in Pittsburgh. And I don't see it. But you see, like, we've seen a couple of retirement stories, like Carmelo Anthony officially retired. When was he playing? Like, I love these guys who aren't playing and haven't played, and they're like, all right, fine, I'm officially done. I think the league basically told you, Carmelo, a few years ago, you're done.
And I are still active.
Technically, you guys are still active.
He's active, though. You haven't signed your retirement.
So there you go. And Adrian Peterson's out there saying, no, I'm planning on playing. You can plan all you want, AP. No one's giving you a job. Yeah. Like, you're retired, man. It sucks, but I think you just gotta accept the fact.
You're done. That's
you got to accept it.
Yeah.
All right. Very good chance the Dallas Stars are done. The Carolina Hurricanes are done. More on that with Craig Button into the next hour. Jerry's percentages at 5:30. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.